Hello, everybody. Scott Golden here, Pro Wrestling Logic YouTube channel. Welcome to those of you who are new. Welcome back to those of you who are seasoned veterans of what we do around here. This is our World Class Championship Wrestling Review Series, and we're going through episodically what's available on the network. Hopefully, I hope to find some outside sources to be able to go find some really cool stuff that is not available on the network to fill in the holes, but I don't know how that's going to work out. Anyway, we move to the April 24th, 1982 edition, and we start with a promo by Arman Hussein. Hussein is still a wrestler here, but primarily is a manager with Hart and Hussein Limited, focusing on King Kong Bundy, although he still does wrestle from time to time here. Very basic match, as is to be expected. Hussein claiming to be the African heavyweight champion. Don't know if such a belt exists or if it was for the express purposes of trying to get himself, in a less compromising position, or to kind of make him seem extra special. Regardless, it does work. Hussein really is going to town with a lot of strikes. You don't really see a lot out of him that would be anything other than heel tactics, using the ropes and chokes and various things for several minutes. Then we see him use several knee drops, one of which finally dropped to the chest and takes care of his opponent, Sal Alvarez. Very basic match, not anything you have to go out of your way to see, but the crowd is certainly inspired in all the, wrong ways by this particular individual. Then we move on to Bugsy McGraw. McGraw, obviously a former America's heavyweight champion, a guy who is a polarizing character, to say the very least. Bugsy McGraw against Raul Castro. Castro is a masked fellow who I assume has some lucha background. Does some rather quick moves in the beginning. McGraw, who is an older gentleman by this point, doesn't do a lot in the ring, but is able to make every move count. The strikes, forearms that he uses are notable for a variety of reasons. We then see him use a top rope, and I'm going to call it a flop. A splash means he jumps. He just kind of falls in the general direction of his opponent. It works for him. Bugsy is obviously doing the crazy-making situation. We then move to an interview with Kerry Von Erich and Al Madril. They are the tag team champions of the world-class region at this point. Kerry talks about his partner going through more than he ever has, talks about both guys wanting to be long-term champions, talks about going through many teams to get the honor of being champions. Madril mentions being the former world junior heavyweight champion of the NWA at a point, talks about various desires to continue holding on to the championship for quite a bit, and obviously is very concerned with holding on to that championship. Now we move into a really, I guess I'd say, decent, albeit basic match. Wild Bill Irwin sans Frank Dusek versus Richard Blood. Blood, who has been a perennial enhancement talent for the first few months of the year, moving into a non-title match with the Texas champion in Irwin. Irwin here working the majority of the head. There's good back and forth. If you like just basic wrestling and storytelling, going out of your way to watch this, I think Bill Irwin is criminally underrated now that I'm watching him episodically, in terms of carrying baby faces who may not have the most experience or experience in higher profile matches. Anyway, carrying them through and bringing the best out of them. while doing a very safe and basic style, throwing a few innovative moves in throughout matches just to get reactions. The match itself is booked 50-50. It is believable at several times during the contest that Blood would in fact win, but he does not. We see the benefit of the win for the Texas champion Wild Bill here, and the crowd is somewhat split. I'd say 80-20. But I think even here in 82, there were some people in the crowd just from watching the visual that Wild Bill and his tough Texas ways have filtered into the hearts and minds of the viewing audience. It's amazing to me something as simple as a body slam and a knee lift can be a transition that gets the crowd to react in 1982. Yes, I realize it's almost 40 years ago, but still, just imagining a time when something that simple and simplistic could be a major thing. Drop kicks are, still a move that inspires fear and gets a near fall, where drop kicks are just oversights and overshots now. And so we move into the match post this, but I'm just looking for the exact note of Irwin beating his opponent, which he does relatively handily, and there we go. He hits the running knee drop a la Harley Race, literally running all the way across the ring. He doesn't acknowledge Harley in the interview, but he does acknowledge no longer being associated with Arman Hussein, with Frank Dusek. He acknowledges taking on several challengers for the championship and among other things. Then we move into the weekly Von Erich match of the week. And this time it's Black Gordman against Kerry Von Erich, the current America's champion. Certainly, you have to put Kerry in there with a guy who knows what he's doing. He's very protected. Obviously, he uses a good bit of power. He uses finesse, drop kicks, and the like. They go to the outside a bit. Very basic match here. Gordman always comes back to taking over with cheating tactics. Man, the crowd is so behind Kerry, and if he hadn't have had the drug use challenges he did, I almost wonder if he wouldn't have been a guy who could have been the face of the 80s if he maybe had. I'm not saying coming from the Von Erich family was bad, but if he'd come from a different environment and maybe he'd gotten a shot at being the top babyface for WWF in '85 instead of Hogan, maybe that could have been, or a shot at being the NWA guy if he'd stayed healthy. I really think Kerry is a guy who the drugs took him out of being one of the top names in the world. It's interesting because Kerry goes and uses several submission holds, be they leg grapevines or something as simple as the claw, and he does this to get some time out of matches, but also the heel, you can sense and see the heel walking him through, carrying him through the situation, and it's clear that working with Kerry means having to be on top of your game 100% of the time. Then we see a pre-match promo from King Kong Bundy and Arman Hussein encouraging fans from all over the place to bring Bundy in if there's good money to be had. Also, amazingly, there are police officers escorting various people to the ring, which we don't see that nearly enough anymore. I remember even in 89 through 96 when I was going to WWF shows pretty regularly on a monthly basis at least. They still had security in that way. They don't do that now. They have plainclothes security, obviously, but it's just amazing how things change. This match is decent. Bundy is not successful in getting rid of the Spoiler, which is his opponent for the day. Spoiler using a lot of athleticism, walking the ropes a couple of times, and just really taking it to Bundy. This is a match where I don't have as much trouble with Bundy having challenge because the Spoiler is a mainstay in the area. The Spoiler is an athletic fellow, and again, walking that rope and using the clubbing forearms and whatnot. Just a guy that Bundy should have some trouble with. Bundy, however, does get preoccupied with demasking the Spoiler, which leads to the eventual ending of things. The referee stops the match for this reason, which was a little interesting. But that is the April 24th edition of World Class for you. Overall, worth going to check out a couple of things. What I find amazing is still they are, under 20 as a main roster, under 20 people, and yet week by week there's episodic television where when I see guys on my screen, I'm excited to see what's coming next with them. Now your mainstream companies quite often have 40 or 50 or more guys on an individual roster, and they can't get me to care what's going to happen with one or two of them. It's just a weird indictment of the changes in the sport and not for the better. In any event, I encourage you to stay with us here. We're going to start the month of May, and we'll be back momentarily with that.